Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Cookbook. So I'm super excited. I know I say that every show, but we have so many great guests that I'm super excited about all of them. But today's guest, I'm especially excited about because we had this serendipitous moment when we met. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Elaine Williams. And Elaine Williams is a video coach, speaker coach, comedic speaker, a bestseller author and comedian with her appearances on Saturday Night Live, America's Got Talent, HBO, TV networks, the New York Times, and the Huffington Post. Whew! Her clients have gone from never doing video or speaking live to having their own YouTube channels, doing international book tours, and speaking for NASA. Energy coach Diane Foster says, Elaine helped me go from awkward to awesome on camera. So without further ado, let's meet Elaine Williams.
Hey, Iris. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, I'm so excited that you are here. I was telling Kofi before we started, because he was like, how did you guys meet? And I said, we were in this round table for the dames, and, there were these group of women on the screen, and I saw you, and you were outside in a little parka. My New Yorker just came. Well, it is parka. It's not parka. And then, your sunglasses. And I was like, I want to talk to her. And then boom, we were in the room together. And
it was so perfect.
We've been talking ever since. So I'm beyond thrilled.
Yay!
That you're
yes.
here.
And here we are.
Sky open. So
New Yorkers.
So I'm super excited and I saw and this is going to be filmed after, but I know that you're doing this how to be your authentic self thing tomorrow, which now is going to be a couple of weeks ago. But I think that it's important because we were talking about the authenticity piece. And one of the things that I noticed was in your bio, when I was reading it, that it said NASA. So was it you who spoke to NASA or one of your clients?
It was one of my clients, and thank you for the question. And this woman was already a great speaker. She had been a partner for a big agency, and I met her and her husband, who was her partner. And what was interesting was the minute she got on camera, she became hi, sort of over presentational. Something was off. And her husband was like, please help us, Elaine. And sometimes it can be hard to work with your intimate person, And so she and I started working together. And, with just a few sessions, he was like, you did it. You unlocked her. And it was just so much fun to see her blossom. And it was a great lesson for me because it was when I've been coaching for years and years, like you. This is not my first rodeo. And I started Captivate the Crowd in 2016, even though I had been coaching on lots of other topics and lots of different markets. And I realized, I should use my 40 plus years of performing professionally to help speakers and help people who are already, so I do with the beginners, but this woman was already good, but I helped her get even to a whole other level. And I'll never forget when she was like, I just spoke for NASA and you were part of that. And I was like, okay, that was amazing. She had so many great stories I pulled out, and
wow.
I love doing that work. Just love it.
Well, and I think that's amazing that a couple of sessions and this seasoned person is now even better. But one of the things that you and I were talking about was being authentic, and I have a pod on LinkedIn, and we're talking. That's one of the main things. The DEI initiative and being your authentic self, and being able to be your authentic self. And I remember when I started doing video, so just really fast, Kofi has been trying to get me to do video for like 3 years. And so right before the pandemic, he's like, you need to be doing video. And I was like, I never need to be doing I mean, I say professionally, and that's different, but to do a video on what I know as far as business, I was like, no, because to me, if you were on video, you needed to look like a movie star, you needed to be a Barbie doll, or, you know, whatever, blonde hair, blue eyes. Right, exactly. The perfect complexion, the perfect whatever. And so I was like, no. So we filmed it, and then we showed it to this woman, Amanda, who works in the co-working studio that we work out of. And she was like, yeah, it's fine. And I'm like, no, I look like crap. So fast forward, now we're in COVID, and I'm home on my computer going, yeah, I have no one to talk to. So I started communicating with, I just started like jumping in on marketing, like threads. And then I met Nina for Reap. And I sent her my video. She said, it's not terrible, but you could do this, this, and this. And then she had this video challenge. And so I joined it. And it was, you know, 1 video a day for the month of whatever it was. I think it was like April or May. And by the time that month was done, COVID was rampant at this point, and everybody looked like crap. Like there was not one person, unless you were a movie star, right, that looked fantastic. So I was comfortable disseminating my knowledge and, you know, giving the information and the valuable hints and tips and all that stuff. And so then it just became like a way of life.
I love it. I love it. And I think, you know, I bump up against that too. I teach it. And, you know, I just taught last week, and I said, how many people, and it was a seasoned businesswoman. And I said, how many times have you started to do a video and then you stopped because you thought of someone or something and you just were like, oh, not today. And they all raised their hand. And I was like, that's what I want to speak to, because for me, it's daily courage, right? And you know, and if you think about, I'm speaking to all of the internet, it's like daunting. So I say, you know, one person, one problem, one solution. So think of that one client who adores you, or your mother, or your sister, or your lover, or your dog. I love, you know, and so that helps me. And then I also teach people, like, you get to say, like, nobody wants to be bullied. And it can actually, I teach this reframe. It can actually be a sign that you're on the way, right? Because anybody who's done anything big has to be bold, and some people aren't going to like that boldness, right? I believe that's in our DNA. I think that's part of the fear of being seen. We want to be seen, but there's a part of it that's like, well, maybe, you know. And I think that comes from, in the olden days, if you spoke boldly against the tribe, or somebody didn't like you, you could get kicked out. And that meant death, literally and figuratively.
Right.
You know, and so I think that's one of the things people bump against. And so I'm all like, can you picture somebody, a client who loves you because you helped save their life? Or just somebody who just loves what you do? You know, when you can think of that, that helps you speak into that instead of waiting. Because, you know, I have naturally curly hair like you. My hair, people are like, what did you do? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, right. It has its own mind. It's kind of like my boobs these days. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Like, they are just unruly and out of control, right? Midlife. Am I right? Like, oh my God. Right. And, you know, and so I used to worry. I used to blow out my hair. And I'm finally like, Elaine, I'm teaching authenticity. It is more authentic for me to have curly hair. And if somebody doesn't like that, that's cool. There's plenty of other people who want my help, or who will want my help, you know.
Are they not going to want your help because you're curly hair? I can't have curly hair, can't have straight hair, because my wife hates my straight hair. So this is like true story. So when we first got together, I used to blow my hair out. And then I let it go one day because we were in a rush to get somewhere. And I was like, screw it, I'm just not going to do it. And she was like, oh, right. And I'm like, okay. So since, 20 years, and then my hairdresser about a month ago, I said, you know what, don't straighten it all the way, but I miss my hair. Like, I want to see it. So she kind of blowed it out a little, right? And then, or blew it out. And then I get home and Heather was like, no. And because we're 20 years together now, there's no filter, right? So I said, what do you mean? No, I love it. I go, I feel like it makes me look younger. And she goes, I think the opposite.
Okay.
Like she actually said that. And I went, you did not just say that. She said, well, you don't want me to lie to you. Oh my God. So now I'm never going to do it again. Oh yeah.
Duly noted. But and here's the thing, like it is fun. If you've had curly hair, it's fun to have straight hair. And it takes a lot of time and energy, and it's not good for your hair at the end of the day.
No, it's
and
not.
I always think that is 20 minutes I could be doing something, so maybe someday I will blow out my hair again, or I may get into wigs as I get older. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I love that. And believe it or not, I know many women in business who have chosen to blow out their hair because they were perceived as stronger and more effective as leaders with straight hair. That's a whole other thing, but it's true. They've done studies, like
really?
It is, yeah. Which, thank God it's 2022, but yeah, things have changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
That. Yeah. It definitely is crazy. So, okay. So you've been doing comedy and you've been doing all of these other things, but what made you decide to become an entrepreneur? Like what made you decide to be like, okay, I'm going to take what I do and make it something else?
Well, I have a joke. Like I came out of the womb with a waitress apron on, but, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and my parents divorced when I was 4. And my father remarried this woman who, she was a Holocaust survivor, and she had a lot of unprocessed trauma. And, there were a lot of factors, and it was the 70s, right? So we didn't have the awareness that we do as a culture about therapy and trauma and mental illness. And, so, I won't go in the whole saga, but she was very, very controlling, and she did not like me because I reminded her of my mother, who she detested. So looking back in Texas, I'm like, it's a miracle nobody got shot, right? But so I wanted to have my own money because I wanted to have freedom from this crazy woman. And so I got a job in summer camp. Like, so I always just wanted to have my own money so that I could be independent. And, and I was always hustling. Like the minute I started working, I was like getting summer jobs. I started when I was 15 at a juice bar in Dallas. Wow. And then I was a lifeguard, and then I was a waitress. And they were like, I remember my first job, he was like, you have a really great personality. You really need to work on your focus. But, and I'm so grateful that I had that skill, because my parents cut me off when I was 19, my freshman year in college. They were like, you have to move home. And I was like, no. And I got a waitress job. Very different, spending money versus, first you pay the rent, then you buy the beer, right? So, right. But I'm so grateful for the restaurant industry, because that's how I worked my way through 2 degrees and have my house, like everything, that was a real backbone while I was always doing all these other entrepreneurial side hustles.
Right.
So there's no shame. Anyone who's listening, there is no shame in side hustles. In fact, I encourage it, because sometimes it's great to put all your eggs in one basket. And sometimes it's really great to have proof of concept and have some stuff stored away, because it does take longer than you think, right? Yeah. When you take the leap, it's exciting, and it is so scary. Oh my God.
And that's one of the things that, and that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you later about, advice, but it is that leap. It's like, there's like this famous saying, actually, I think it's Martin Luther King, right? It's like, you have to have faith to take the first leap. And I remember seeing this like cartoon of this guy, at the edge of a cliff, and he takes the first step, and this like bridge shows up. And to me, it's like, oh yeah, because, when I decided to do, this, my, first business or whatever, it was out of necessity. So it wasn't a matter of taking, well, it kind of was, because I could have looked for another job.
Sure.
But I realized that if I was going to truly help people, I couldn't do it working for somebody else.
Right.
Because, they don't have my vision, they have their vision. And I'm not going to be making me money, I'm going to be making them money. So there was like a whole bunch of, different things. But the biggest thing was that leap of faith that, okay, here we go. And it was crazy because the first 6 months was nuts. People were like, yes, I want to work with you. And my pipeline was filled and everything was great. And we made like a bunch of money. And then I had to have shoulder surgery and never factored that in. So, I'm in the hospital trying to work on, Ativan or whatever. And my wife is like taking all my, computer and my phone. And she's like, you're giving shit away. Stop talking to people. Like, yeah, you can have this. No problem. She's like, no.
So grounded.
There was my pipeline, right? I mean, I went from, having this pipeline to not speaking to people for about a month because I was, pretty out of it. And my pipeline disappeared. And then it was like literally having to start over again. So it was scary. It was like, do I find a job or do I keep doing this? And I just kept doing this.
That's awesome, Iris. That takes so much courage. Whew.
It's scary, but you're right. I mean, it's scary. So you, you never really worked in corporate and you never really had like a job, did you? Or?
Well, I've had, it's funny. I've had, I was a temp when I very first moved to New York City. I was a temp and I'll never forget. I was like, woohoo, I'm making $15 an hour. And then the taxes, very different in New York versus Texas.
Oh, yeah.
So when I got my first check, I cried for like 2 hours. I was like, I can't, oh my God. And I love Manhattan, but it is a very expensive city. And so I had moved with some savings and you're just like seeing it like go down. So,
oh, yeah.
And so then I did work in some restaurants and then I worked for a very corporate restaurant that was in Midtown. And when I started in 2001, it was originally a Texas steakhouse and it was very slow. And I'm very clear, I helped build that brand and we became the second highest grossing restaurant in America. And then behind Tavern on the Green. And then when Tavern on the Green closed, we became number one. And so it was an amazing experience. It was a very toxic environment, very misogynistic, lots of illegal activities. I didn't know what I didn't know. And in hindsight, I probably could be sitting very pretty if I was a litigious person, but I'm not, but I learned so much from the whole experience. And then finally, and my plan is, so I'm doing comedy and I'm like training to be a coach and I'm doing speaking and I'm speaking on college campuses. So I'm, I have different things percolating. And I was tired of the boys club in the comedy world. At the time, this is like 2007, 8, 9, right? And I was still a new comedian, but I was like, this is crazy. Like I had a better set than this other guy, but he got picked because he's friends with and so there's a part of me that's like, I want to have my own comedy club for women. And I knew I was going to need money. So I decided I was going to get into flipping houses. So, and I was taking this real estate because I already had this one multifamily in Bloomfield, New Jersey. And so I took money out of my 401k, my savings. I got a home equity line of credit. I was like all in, right? And so I'm like, I'm going to flip houses by day, do comedy by night. And I was extended, but I really, and I had partners helping me. And so I had 3 houses I was rehabbing. And the idea was to rehab them, fix them up, and then sell them and repay myself, but, kind of get this thing going. And then the economy tanked in 2008. And that was a challenging time. And so and in hindsight, I wish I had just declared bankruptcy like everybody else did, but I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm just going to keep working. So I just kept working and doing, anyway, it was a long, painful mess. And I'm grateful that I had this gig at this corporate restaurant while I was trying to figure out what to do. Right. Because, so many people lost so many things in that crash. And I eventually let 3 of the houses go at losses. And, it was some painful, but I learned a lot. And it kept me chained to this corporate restaurant for longer because I just wanted to okay, that didn't work out. And I had to kind of rebuild my self-trust. And, it was a process. And then I finally took the leap. And so even though it wasn't like an office gig, it was a corporate 2 weeks paid, 401k, insurance, and those can be the golden handcuffs, right?
Wow.
But my heart, there's, I just realized if I was going to expand and become the transformational thought leader, I see myself as a global speaker. I teach video and it's really transformational work. I knew I could not keep being in that environment, even part-time, even, I really made my own schedule. I had a lot of great perks because I'd been there so long. I trained all my managers. And when I finally took the leap, it was like the best. I was like, why did I wait this long? And it was so scary. I didn't have shoulder surgery, but I was having back issues, feet issues. They wanted to do surgery. And I knew that if I could just get off my feet, my body would heal, and it did for the most part, but I know what that's like. And I know what that's like if anybody's listening and they want to take the leap. So absolutely do it. And you want to have, you want to have some savings. If you can have a side hustle to bring in some income, that is helpful so that you don't occur as desperate, which I think I accidentally occurred as desperate sometimes in the beginning, not consciously, but.
Yeah. And I think, we all do. Cause I remember in the beginning, I would take anybody, after my surgery, it was like, oh, you need a website? Yeah, I'll take you. You need SEO? Sure, I'll take, you need whatever. Yeah. Come on. I don't, our values don't have to align. Now I don't work with anybody whose values don't, but it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I had to work, I had to kiss a lot of frogs before I found my princess.
Honey.
And right. So, so definitely take the leap. If you have savings, great. If you don't, and you're going to go for it, if it's out of necessity, just do it. I mean, that's what I'm going to say is do it, because if you don't, you'll never know. If you do it and you fail,
you can go back, right?
You can go back, right? Or you can try again, because to me, failing is really, you're not failing. You just, it's practice until it's right.
It's so great. And, I just was thinking of what advice would I give along what you just, how I would add on to that. And, I would have some, if you don't have any clients before you take the leap, I would definitely have some kind of part-time thing. And it can be, there's no shame in driving for Uber or driving for Amazon or, working at an office part-time. There's no shame in that. And I shamed myself because I was like, I should be. And it's when we're shooting on ourselves, it doesn't serve anybody, and everybody has their own timing. And, I made myself wrong, and, it doesn't help. And just trusting, okay, for whatever reason, I'm still here. So if I'm the source of everything, if life is happening for me and not to me, what am I here to learn, right? So I got to learn to own my own power and my own value and to trust. There were, lots and lots of lessons. So, I would, and then the other thing I would say is find other entrepreneurs who have done that leap.
Yep.
So that there is hope and there's support and you're not alone. All those years when I was running around and I was speaking and I was touring, and then I'd run back, and there were many times I think if I had some kind of entrepreneur network of support, it would have helped me make the leap a little earlier, or at least not suffer so much. Mm-hmm. Because I knew, that when you're not living your purpose, like I was living it, but instead of making a difference for 40 people a night, I know I was supposed to be on bigger and bigger stages with bigger and bigger things, right? And so there's a part of you that's like, I'm not living up to my potential, which can be soul sucking, right? And so I wish, in hindsight, having some kind of network or support, whether it's Toastmasters, like there's so many great meetups. There's so many great communities. Come follow Iris and Elaine, because we are part of some really cool communities. And, that can really be instrumental when you're in that transition or getting ready for that transition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember I did find this network, and it was all, sorry, it's all old white men.
Oh, no, just kidding.
And but here's the funny thing, right? So here's this, little old gay girl who's running her own business. And, at the beginning of every meeting, they would say, so tell us about your weekend. So everybody would talk about what they did with their wives and, the kids and everything. And I'd be like, oh, Heather and I did blah, blah, blah. And after about 2 months, the leader of the meeting pulled me aside and said, people feel like you're throwing your sexuality in their face. And I went, what? How? Like, I'm not saying anything. Well, when you talk about what you and Heather did during the weekend, and I was like, and I'm just going to drop the first one. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, they're talking about their families, and I can't talk about by talking about my family, I'm throwing my sexuality. So I left, and then I actually reported them because I was just like fuming.
That is ridiculous.
It was nuts. But then it gave me this in my mind, no one's going to want to work with me if they know that I'm gay. But at this point, it was too late because I'm in Lafayette, Indiana, and everybody knew, that I was gay. So it was like, there, no hiding it. And then the initiative came out with, this business works with everybody. And I forgot what it was. But it was just saying that everybody is welcome. So things started changing, turning around. And the real funny part of it was I started working with, these really heavy Christian people. And, to me, it was like, if I turn down their business, it's no better than the baker turning down a gay marriage, right? So our ideals may be different, but it doesn't mean that we can't meet in the middle. And one of my clients who I love, she's near and dear to my heart, she's a Bibleist. And I've taught her some things. And I mean, she's, spoken to me about stuff, and we agree to disagree about some things, but, I've kind of opened her mouth on gay adoption, opened her mind on, gay people adopting kids. And so, it's like you have those conversations, and then, you open up knowledge, and then you open up this whole thing. And to me, it was like the biggest thing. I was like, oh my God, that was so huge, because the conversation went, in Oklahoma, they put this complete ban on gay people adopting kids. Oh, well, I think that's great. You think that's great? So you don't think Heather and I should adopt? Oh, well, it's different. It's you and Heather.
Right. But
how is that different?
Wow. Well, I love that. And I feel like that's how we make a difference, especially yes. There's so many polarized things. And I think because of social media, it can be dehumanizing in a way, right? And so that's how we make a difference. We have conversations. I feel like to use it's a generalization, but I feel like everyone has become so reactive and so like, I need to be right, or they're wrong, or they're, and it's like, well, let's have conversations as humans.
Right.
And, I love it that you have a client that, that to me is a sign of intellect and tolerance. And, I grew up in Texas, and I consider myself a universalist. I'm a 12-stepper all the way. I pray, I meditate, I read lots of different spiritual texts. And from what I know, and I have not studied Jesus, but I think he preached tolerance
and love
and turn the other cheek
and acceptance
and love.
Right.
Like unconditional love and acceptance.
Correct.
And, that's one reason I love the Quakers, And I love the 12-step world, which is like, you don't have to believe in your definition of God, higher power, which for some people, they get sober, they go back to church. For some people, they find out a whole nother relationship with their higher power. For some people, they get into nature. It's like whatever works for you, and anyway, so I love that. I feel like at the end of the day, who gets to define what family is? Well, right? And there's so many words that have been like just become so political that I don't think we're ever meant to,
Yeah, I know.
I love that. I love that you're teaching her things. That's so great.
And the really funny thing was, Heather and I always go, she's from Pittsburgh, so we always go to Pittsburgh for Christmas, right? And so we met after, it was like, I think in January, she was like, hey, let's get together. And I'm like, yeah, we'll review the last quarter and kind of go over everything. And she goes, so what did you and your husband do over the holidays? And I said, well, my wife and I, because I never came out to her. It never to me, but when she said husband, I was like, it's time. So I said, well, my wife and I, and she went, oh, and she went, oh. And then she felt awful. She was like, oh my goodness. And I said, it's okay. It's okay. And she was like, I'd love to meet Heather. And the conversation was, completely different. And I think you're right. It's all about, and I hate the word tolerance because that means you're tolerating something. I think that it's more.
Good point. Very good
right?
point.
I think it's more of being open to other diversities,
experiences. Yes.
Experiences, right?
I'll tell you a funny story, Iris. So one of my side hustles, I have several sober sisters who are therapists. And one of them said, Elaine, one of my clients is what do you call it? Binomial, when they identify as they, them.
Bisexual.
I'm going blank on the term. I feel so silly. Anyway,
lesbian. I don't.
And they identify as they, them. They don't identify with a specific he or she thing. So
non-binary.
Non-binary. Thank you.
There you go. Okay. So, I have to turn my lesbian card in.
So my friend said, Elaine, I thought of you because you're so non-judgmental. And I remember thinking, well, on good days, I'm human. So anyway, so I started working with this person as a side hustle. And I was fascinated because they taught me a lot. And I made a mistake daily about referring to this person as and this person would say pronoun. And I'd be like, sorry, which was funny at first. And then it wasn't.
Right.
And what was interesting was this person, lovely, talented, brilliant person, but lots and lots of issues. And I wanted to learn. I'm 54, but I wanted to learn. I don't want to use language that upsets or offends anybody.
Right.
I want to be inclusive. That is my nature. That is in my heart. And this person came down so hard. I wish I'd had the space to say, we all want to be educated, but not if we feel like we're getting daggers. Like a lot of us just don't know.
Right.
And so we want to learn, but not if we're going to feel chastised or like we're going to go burn in hell or, and so, and it's just like plastic bags, right? Like I remember so many times I used to feel uncomfortable. Like, I can't believe they don't know. And I stopped being my self-righteous uppity. And I was like, for whatever reason, they don't know. And so every time I would take my canvas bag to many places, I would simply say, I'm trying to use less plastic. And many times I had conversations with people in my line, the checker outer person, the bagger person. And I just wanted to have conversations. And so that they could think and not feel like, what a crazy old bag lady, And so that's my way. It's very small, but it's my way of hopefully helping to educate people who, for whatever reason, they haven't gotten the message yet, or it didn't penetrate, or whatever. And I feel like that's the kind of work that you and I get to do as thought leaders and as entrepreneurs and as women. And there's more woke for me to get to, but I feel like, isn't that part of being human, is to share our humanity? And when we know better, we do better, like Maya Angelou says. So, how can we educate people instead of just like making them bad or wrong for their unconsciousness, right? Like,
right. No, I think, it's 100% right. And, one of the things that I find really interesting is, you talk about branding, right? You talk about your branding and how you want people to think of you and your brand. And to me, it's always been, branding was never about the logo, like my little fire thing there, right? I mean, are people going to know it? Yeah, but that's not my brand. My brand is how you feel when you look at that fire. Like when you look at that little flame, do you feel like, oh, Iris, or, whatever, or do you feel like, oh, Iris, right? And I think that's with any company. And I think that's where the diversity and the equity and the inclusion comes in, because we're in a world now. I mean, we just had this, a year of the Great Resignation, where people have left their jobs in droves because they didn't feel seen. They didn't feel appreciated. They were working in a toxic environment. Their leaders weren't leaders. They were bosses. And there's a huge difference for those of you out there, that are leaders. When you lead, you help people grow. You don't tell them what the fuck to do. And I've been in toxic situations where it was like, you're going to do this. And it was like, no, I'm not, I quit, so, and I think that that's a lot of, what's happening now. So a lot of brands, one of my clients right now actually is doing this really big DEI initiative push, which is phenomenal. And it was funny because they're learning, right? So one of the things that they sent me for marketing was they needed something done, and they were like, hey, can you get this done right now? And I was like, send it to me and I'll see what I could do. And the original picture was of this little boy. And then we couldn't get the background out because we didn't have the vector file. For you designers out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. So they sent me this other picture, and it was of a little white girl holding up the product going like this. Now, they didn't even think about it, because this used to be an innocent sign. This used to mean like, okay, now it means white power, right?
Oh, so I didn't know that. Thank you for educating me.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. Google the white power sign, and this is what you'll see, or like this.
No. Okay.
So I called her up, and I'm like, you can't use that. And she's like, what do you mean? And I told her, and I sent her a link. And she was like, oh, crap. She goes, we have billboards everywhere. And I was like, oh, my God. But they were electronic billboards. So they were just able to turn it off and then redo the creative and put it up. But people don't think about this stuff. And I have been, people use the term woke. I've been really educating myself on, what diversity and equity and inclusion really means. Because I've always thought, I'm inclusive to everybody and, whatever. I never looked at my privilege. I never looked as, because I was like, well, I'm a, Jewish, gay woman. So I have 3 strikes against me, right? Never thought of it, but I don't wake up black. So.
Yeah. Oh, Iris, I'm so glad you brought this up. This is, I thought I was woke for all the wrong, because of AA, because AA has all different races and religions and levels of money in it. And because I've spoken at historically Black colleges, and because I worked in restaurants, that was how I thought, well, I'm woke. I have friends of color. I've danced in a modern dance company where I was the only white girl. I've dated Latin guys. I dated an African-American comic. That's, looking back, I'm embarrassed to admit that that's what I thought I was.
But you shouldn't be aware. You don't know what you don't know, right? That's what we said earlier.
And my sister, who's like one of my biggest heroes. We've always talked about race, and we've always talked about how it is just harder in America if you're not white. And we've had conversations about this. And when the George Floyd happened, I realized that there was a lot more education that I needed. And so I have been on a mission, and I have been educating myself. I grew up in Texas public schools. When I went to college, I had a few professors that blew my mind. And then I kind of stopped my education, And one of the reasons I love New York was I love that it was like this mixed, big pot. Although there are certain things that are still segregated, right? Austin, Texas, and Texas is transforming, but not fast enough, in my opinion. But so one of my missions is to help educate other white people, especially white women. I think for so long, because we felt repressed or marginalized or whatever, we did not realize of our privilege. And now that we're waking up, I feel like there's a lot more conversations we can all start having. And one of my long-term goals is I want to do a one-woman show that is really a call out to other white women about like, okay, now that we're awakened and we realize we had more power than we didn't realize we had, and a lot of it was here in the conditioning and the patriarchy or whatever. Now it is time, ladies. If you are thriving, it is time. How are you giving back? What's your initiative? What's your movement? It is time. It is time, because as this one woman said on Jon Stewart, men have had 400 years and they haven't done it.
Right.
Or very few. And so it is time. So yeah. I have no idea where it's going. I'm terrified. I know I'm going to offend. I know that I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, but I feel compelled to work on this. So
yeah, no, I think it'll be phenomenal, and I'll be your beta reader if you want.
Okay, good, because I'm gonna need help and support. Yes.
Oh hell yeah, you've got it. You've got it. I think that a lot of businesses that are listening in, business owners that are listening in, I think our audience are of the woke persuasion. I believe that, and if they're not, then maybe they can learn and not get offended. And then if they do get offended, then maybe they're not our audience. And I hate to say that because I really want to be all inclusive. I don't want to exclude anybody. But we are going to be talking about this stuff on the show because it's important. It's important that people are included. As a gay woman who has been told, yeah, I'm not going to do business with you because you're gay. It's like, really? Like, and I think the thing that blows my mind is, I don't, and they make it about sex, which kills me because it has nothing to do with that. It's all about connection.
It has nothing to do.
No, and they don't, but you can't tell. And it's okay. It's like, people are going to see things the way that they see them. And if I can educate them to see differently, fantastic. And if I can't, then I can't. Wow. But exactly. But I love your idea of the show because I think you're right. Men have had it for 400 years and no. And I think that's why Megan started the Dames because, there's the 15% of women in the country or in the world. Well, actually it's global. And Megan, I apologize if I get this wrong because I'm like a new member. But it's, those of us who are, at a point that we're doing well, and we have a brain and we can run a business and we can do things, not necessarily without guys, but we don't need them to be successful, right?
Yes, and I just want to say, Iris, I love men. I want to be very clear. I love men. I am hetero. I tried to be gay, but I quit when it was my turn. That's a joke, but those cocaine days in my 20s. But I just want to be clear, like, I love men. I think men, I know a lot of conscious, loving men. I know a lot of men who are smart, who want to do better. I know men who fight. My boyfriend has done amazing civil rights work.
Wow.
He gets so impassioned. He was choked up yesterday when he was talking about the lacrosse team that got stopped in Atlanta. And I love that about him. So I just want to be really clear. I love men. I am not men bashing in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm want to speak vehemently about is the patriarchy, the system. And that is all part of the ongoing racial inequality. It's been baked into our culture and our conditioning.
Yes.
That's what I want to keep talking about. So I love men. And I think sometimes in the past, feminist, that has been such a, poisoned word. And, I think you can be for women and still for men, just against the patriarchy and the systems that have not served anybody. Patriarchy has not been good for the men either.
Right. Oh, no, I agree. And I don't want to come off as a man basher either. I mean, there are men that I have, my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, there are people that I know in my life, Kofi, there's a lot of men that I know that I love that are good people. And, they are feminists, but yeah, it's the, and it's not just men, it's people.
Yeah.
That
there's the enforcers. There's the female enforcers.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. And they
the
don't.
Phyllis Schlafly's, right.
They don't want to learn. They don't want to evolve. And they just want to stay. And here's, the kicker is, and my wife is going to get pissed if I say this, but, it's like white people right now are the minority. So for all the white people out there that are going, we're the majority, we're blah, blah, blah. It's like, wake up, baby, because we are the minority and that's okay. And I guarantee you there's probably not a lot of white people out there that are pure white.
No,
so, what I'm saying? It's like,
race is a constructed thing anyway. No. And, it's like, I love it how people pick and choose what they want to focus on in the Constitution or the Bible or whatever. But I'm like team human. That's me. Like, I do love this country, and there's a lot of things that I would like to see shifted and changed. And I don't think we can do it until we acknowledge how it was founded. And that's been one of the huge scars that has not been allowed to heal because of the denial.
Right.
Denial and repression. And, I didn't understand to the length. There were just so many things I didn't understand. So, I'm like, let's keep talking about it. So, but anyway, I hope I'm not kicking a dead horse. I'm very passionate about inclusion and diversity. Can you imagine how boring would it be if it was just a bunch of white people sitting around talking about Martha Stewart and Hallmark? I mean, I know. Gag me.
Hallmark. Like Hallmark started this new, or the guy who was a partner in Hallmark started this new network. And like, I think all of the, conservative people are going over because Hallmark has gay movies now, which is
thank God.
I know, right? It's like, but we have gotten so off track, but that's okay because we can talk like forever.
You'll have to have me again.
Oh my God, and again and again. And there may end up being an offshoot of this where we just talk about social stuff. Like we're trying to figure some things out. But so why are you an expert in your field, and why should someone choose to work with you? Like, what makes you more special than your competitor?
Oh, that's a great question. So I really care about my clients. Like, I will stalk them. Where's your reel? I would rather have a small, engaged community than a big one with people just not really getting results. So that's one reason. I am passionate about helping people find their voice, whatever that means, right? For some people, it might mean making a video for the first time ever. And that's like, whoa. For some people, it's working on their TED Talk and getting their big idea out in a whole new way. One of my clients is finishing a book she's been working on and stuck with. So I especially help people with video because that's the best way to get out in front of people. And the short form, those platforms are pushing people out, even if you're not in front of people who are not your followers. I'm so passionate about stories and helping people give themselves permission to be seen and heard. Because here's the thing, Iris, we all came to this earth, as a baby. Think about babies can project. They're like, wah! right? Like we all were that loud, right? And we're happy, we're sad, we're in the moment. We walked by this playground the other day and we just were laughing because the kids are like, ah! You know, and they don't hold on, you know, they're not freaking out about the future. They're not freaking out about the past. They're in the moment. And then we get socialized, right? Shh, inside voices, don't do that. Don't be greedy. And we box ourselves in. Some of it's internal, some of it's external. And then we're like, oh, I won't be popular or cool if I'm loud, or I won't be, you know, and all this stuff happens. And I think, or then we have a teacher that says you can't sing, or you can't draw, or you can't paint, or whatever. And so I'm just so passionate about helping people find that voice again, reclaiming it, whatever that means. So hopefully it's video, hopefully it's like being loud and proud about your business. And it could be to try stand-up comedy for the first time, to go back and take singing classes again, to take don't quit your day job, but like it is our human right to be creative. Yes. And I'm so passionate about that because I know I lost my voice growing up for a long time. And theater was my only escape, but I had no voice at home. And so that's why I am just like so passionate. And when and I think you always ask too, like what lights you up, right? Is that okay?
My last one, but go ahead.
if I may, because like when I see somebody have that aha moment, they get it.
Yep.
Or like one of my clients, she's going to be the next TikTok lady. And she's like, she had her wig on and she, she's being a character on purpose, which is very different than like authentic video stuff. But there's a strategy we're doing. But she was leaning in the camera and I was like, tell me. And she was like, don't have a head. She was like just being her adorable, fabulous self in her 70s. This is like her fifth, she's had all of these amazing companies, but like to see her having fun, being self-expressed, being goofy in front of the camera. And then she also has things where she's educating and being herself. Like that is one of my greatest joys. And I feel like it's our human right to be that and come from the inside out, because that's the best way to be you. Like get connected with why are you doing your business, right? What lights you up? And when you can come from that place, your heart and your soul, it doesn't matter if your hair isn't perfect. Oh my God, I had something in my teeth. Okay, you know what? It's about, being consistent. And so that's just, I just love that. I love the work that I do. And I'm so grateful to, be in a position where I'm able to coach from anywhere. And I'm, just love helping people find their bigger selves. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what the world needs right now.
No, you're right. And I've kind of, stalked a couple of your, Facebook Live things that you did. And you're just, you're so genuine and you're so authentic that how can your clients or prospective clients not be? And I always, say, I remember when I was in this networking group and I was told a different one than that other one. I've not had good luck in networking groups. So, but
I've picked many of the wrong
ones. I think, right. And so, but I was actually told, because I said, why am I not getting business? Because the first year I did, the second year I didn't. And I was told, well, you need to be less you.
Oh, right.
And I remember going, what do you mean? Well, you're kind of intense and you're kind of, and I tried to pull back, but I was so miserable and uncomfortable. And I didn't realize it until I was finally like, screw it. No, I'm not going to do that to myself. And it was so freeing when I was finally like, this is me. And if you don't like it, sorry, because I'm not changing. I'm very happy with myself. I love myself. I like myself. My wife loves me, which is really more important than, anything.
Yep.
And my tribe is my tribe. And so, but I love, that you push the authenticity because that, to me, that's what's going to sell. When you put your authentic self into your business, right? It's not separate anymore. Like, you aren't separate from your business anymore. It's kind of combined, because people want to work with you. Like, when people see my videos on LinkedIn, which I haven't done for a while and I need to start doing again, I know.
Me too.
but we can like hold each other accountable on that. But you know, they want to work with me. They see me and they're like, oh my God, I want to work with you. You know your shit, and you're authentic, and you don't care, and that's what I want. And that's, to me, that's huge.
Yes, and I would just say it's a process too, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you can strategize and get into analysis paralysis. And one of the best ways is to make videos. Maybe you don't release them, but you will find that by doing it and sharing your values and sharing your tips and sharing your client stories, it will help you become more authentic. So it's a process. You know, I don't think you just, sometimes people are like, you just wave the magic wand. I truly think it's a process, which is one reason I think it's great to have a coach, whether you hire me or somebody else or Iris. Like, you know, you don't just roll out of bed and you're like, da-da, right? Like, watch Shark Tank. I love that show because you see people's progress. You know, you see, none of them just rolled out of bed and they're like, hey, give me some money, right? So it's a process, and it takes, are you willing to be uncomfortable?
Yeah. No, you're, you know, and when you realize it, right, it's like, la, the heavens open up and the angels sing, and it's like this, you know, beautiful thing. And it's so freeing. It is so freeing. And okay, so for existing entrepreneurs now, not for people who want to be entrepreneurs, but for existing entrepreneurs, what advice do you have for them if they're not authentic, or if they're kind of stuck on, should they be authentic? What kind of advice do you have for them?
I would invite them to do, you know, journal, meditate, and really go deep into do the why. You know, why did you start your business? And what is that? And then why is that important? And then why is that important? And then, you know, and you can always also do it with a buddy. So this is something I do with my VIPs, is that, you know, and why, and why, and why. And if you're not crying by the end, you know, but it's a great way to really get connected with your why. And that will help you come from a different place. And hi, I can help you look great. Buy my stuff, right? It's a come from. And then, you know, there's nothing like have accountability buddy. Say, you know what? I'm going to send you a video every day where I'm telling you a story or a joke or quote. So you get used to seeing yourself on camera. And that is half of the battle right there. And, you know, most people are not going to commit to doing that. That's why if they know they shouldn't, they should call me or Iris, you know, but like having that.
Not me. I do marketing and digital marketing. They should be calling you.
Okay.
I'm not a coach.
Okay. Well, you're a badass, you know, I think of you as like a fire starter, you know, rainmaker kind of person.
That's very on brand with my flame. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Cool. But, you know, if you're the kind of person that can do stuff on your own, do that. And if you know that left to your own devices, you will not do that. That's why having a coach can be so great. That ongoing support, that ongoing accountability, that ongoing emotional stuff. Because, you know, as Iris and I have already talked about, like, it is a roller coaster ride. It is so freeing. And there are challenges when somebody is like, I'm on board, and then stuff happens. You know, I mean, we all have the ups and downs of having your own business is beautiful and awesome, and can be really like, oh God,
why did I do this? What was I thinking? Then when we push through, and that's it, is pushing through those oh shit moments, right? It's like, oh my God, why did I do this? Like, what am I gonna do now?
I think that's a great name of your next book.
Pushing my oh shit moments.
Pushing through the oh shit moments.
There you go.
That would grab my attention.
I'm going to have to write a book. We'll have to talk about that.
Okay.
But okay. So I know we could talk for like 5 hours and it wouldn't even feel like anything. But this has been amazing having you on. I definitely, you definitely have to come back and we'll have to talk about all the other things and then have you on again and then talk about all the other things, after that. So thank you so much for being on my show and being on this journey, because this show is kind of like a little journey for me. So I really appreciate and love the fact that, you're on here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Iris. I just fell in love with you the minute I met you, and I love who you are. I love that you've been in a long-term, fabulous marriage. I love that you moved across the country for your love, and that you guys have a fur baby. There are just so many beautiful things about you, and I feel like, sometimes the universe puts us in places we might not have chosen so that you can have the kind of conversations we were talking about earlier,
Right.
And I know you're great at your job. So I just feel honored that I got picked to be on your show, and I can't wait to come back. And I hope that people listening got a lot out of it. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I kind of fell in love with you the second I saw you on the screen. And the more we talked, the more I knew that we were meant to do something, and we're going to figure that out at some point. But we didn't meet by accident,
right?
So okay. So with that, I'm gonna close the show, and I want to thank everybody for hanging in there with Elaine and I. And I hope that you guys fell in love with Elaine as much as I did. She is amazing, and she will help you get to the next level of whatever you're doing, whether it's video, whether it's speaking. So look her up. She's on LinkedIn. We've been scrolling her LinkedIn link. She's on Facebook. We've been scrolling that. And I think we've been scrolling her Instagram too. So there's a million ways to get hold of her. And I'm excited for our next guest coming up too. And again, thank you guys for hanging in there. Iris Goldfeder, I'm going to sign off, and you go out and you find what lights your fire. Bye, everyone.